Hello, everybody. This is Wrestling Discussion here. So, in this one, I want to talk about the NWO, the New World Order, a faction that was originally in WCW, World Championship Wrestling. Perhaps the most famous faction in professional wrestling history. And in this video, I want to go over who I think, in my opinion, are the top 5 members in order. So, number 5, I go with Six. Formerly known as 123 Kid in WWF, WWE, and formerly known as the Lightning Kid on the independent scene. Six was one of the great workers of the the 90s and the early 2000s. He was somewhat revolutionary, ahead of his time. He would be a top star main event guy right now. If you put 123 Kid and plucked him out and put him on an AEW roster, he would be at the top of that card fairly quickly, in my opinion. That's just me. But Six really added a different dimension to the NWO. He was a great worker. He could do the cruiserweight style. He could work with some of the other heavyweight guys. He could work with anybody. He was always like that perfect first match on a card. Because he could bump so much and he was such a great worker, he could be that first match on the card that really got the crowd going. He was great at that. And I think that added a very important dimension to the NWO because before that, you had Hulk, Hollywood, Hogan, Nash, Scott Hall, The Giant, and I think Ted DiBiase. And then you eventually added Six, and he was that guy that could really be the workhorse of the group, match-wise. So that's my 5th member. The 4th most important member of the NWO, in my opinion, Eric Bischoff. Eric Bischoff, to me, I believe in wrestling history, is that first primetime television heel authority figure. He would join the NWO in November of 1996 as part of a program between Hollywood Hogan, and Roddy Piper. Roddy Piper would come in at Halloween Havoc 1996 and start a feud with Hollywood Hogan that would last well over a year's time. The next month, the week before World War III, Eric Bischoff would join the NWO. He would be revealed as a member of the NWO when Roddy Piper confronted him. In the storyline, Eric Bischoff went up to where Roddy Piper is to confront him to try and get him to put his name on a contract to face Hogan in a match. But Eric Bischoff in storyline never did that. Roddy Piper revealed this, and it was revealed as Eric Bischoff joining the group. He was a really good heel authority figure because you really just wanted to punch him in the face. There's something about him on screen that is immensely dislikable. And that added that heel authority figure to the NWO because in storyline they're trying to take over WCW. So you need that guy, that authority figure that makes that plausible, that makes that a real reality. The 3rd most important member of the NWO, I'm going to go with Kevin Nash here. Kevin Nash was the enforcer of the group, 7 feet tall, over 300 pounds, really jacked guy. Huge guy, had the jackknife powerbomb as the finishing move of his. And that was just, you're a kid and you watching him do that, it looks like such a massive weapon. Like such a massive move. And that added something to the group. Look, when he came in, when Scott Hall came in and confronted Eric Bischoff and the storyline first got started, and Scott Hall says, hey, next week I got a big surprise for you, and it's revealed as Kevin Nash. That sent shockwaves throughout the wrestling world that, still echo somewhat to this day. That obviously just, the whole storyline changed the industry, and Kevin Nash is such an important part of that. You can't overlook it. You can't deny it. He was And him and Scott Hall as the Outsiders were one of the greatest tag teams in history, especially in the 90s. If you made a Mount Rushmore of WCW tag teams, which is a different video for a different time, you got to look at the Outsiders and go, yeah, they're on that Mount Rushmore, top 4 tag teams in WCW World Championship Wrestling history, in my opinion. The second most important member of the NWO, and this is a tough one, right? It's a toss-up between Scott Hall and Hollywood Hogan, and it's difficult, but I'm going to go with Hollywood Hogan as the second most important member of the group. Hollywood joined at Bash of the Beach 1996. They had the third man storyline going at that time, where it was Lex Luger, Macho Man Randy Savage, and Sting versus the Outsiders, Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, and a mystery third man that hadn't been revealed yet. And the whole storyline of the night and the previous weeks leading in was, who was this third man? It was a mystery. No one knew. And if you go back and watch that Bash at the Beach 96 pay-per-view, the tension was palpable. The tension was really, it's an old saying, but you could cut it. It's so thick you could cut it with a knife. I think they even said that during the pay-per-view. And that's true. And when Hulk Hogan made that walk down Bash of the Beach 96, he made that walk down the aisle. It's one of the most iconic moments in wrestling history. You can't really... When he hit the leg drop on Macho Man, and everyone was shocked, and the announcers were yelling, "He's the third man! Hulk Hogan is the third man!" It's so commonplace now for heel turns, but back at that time, he was a babyface character for well over 10 years at this point. Well over 10 years, I think. Well over 12 years. He was a babyface back in the AWA days, back in, I think, 82 and 83, challenging for Bockwinkel and the AWA title. He was a babyface on the wrestling scene for, 13, 14 years at that point. And for him to hit that leg drop, when it's all said and done, and you look at top heel turns in wrestling history, that's going to be number one. Kind of has to be, right? But again, that's a different video for a different time. And now, the final, most important member of the NWO. I would do a drum roll, but I think it's obvious. It's Scott Hall. Without him walking down the stairs of Nitro in May of 1996, there is no NWO. Without him deciding to leave WWF in early 96, there is no NWO. His work was, he's considered one of the best wrestlers of that group, one of the best wrestlers of the 90s. Without him, there is no NWO. Without him, he is the catalyst for the entire group working. Without Scott Hall, the iconic symbol of the NWO that we know of today, that t-shirt, does not exist. Now, some people are going to say, well, without Hollywood, Hogan, it wouldn't exist. Probably not, but I still have to go with Scott Hall here. I think his legacy, his final legacy, other than being a great Intercontinental Champion and a great cornerstone of that new generation era during the mid-90s, his legacy will be the NWO. His legacy will be that, that walk down the stairs in May of 1996 was the spark that changed the professional wrestling industry forever. And that, there's no doubt. That's all for this one, guys. Thanks.